Hi everyone, my name is Theshani and today I'm going to be speaking to you about conflict resolution. Now, I am already aware that you have been introduced to the concept of a conflict. So now you may know that a conflict can happen basically at any time in your day-to-day life, be it with your friends, with your partners, or even at your workplace. A poorly managed conflict can have a lot of negative effects. It can disrupt your day-to-day activities, it can result in a breakdown of relationships, and it can cost a lot of time, effort, and money as well. And that is why we need to know the art of conflict resolution. So today we will be looking into what conflict resolution is, different mechanisms which we use to resolve a conflict, with a specific focus towards ADR, which is known as Alternative Dispute Resolution. And I will, of course, briefly walk you through the main mechanisms of ADR, such as mediation, arbitration, negotiation, etc. Conflict resolution can be defined as a formal or an informal process used by two or more parties in finding a peaceful resolution to a particular dispute or a conflict. And there are a number of conflict resolution skills that you may need to have in order to address a conflict effectively, such as open communication, active listening, neutrality, respect for the other party, etc., etc. Now we know a bit about conflict resolution. So now I would like to take you to what ADR is, Alternative Dispute Resolution is. So whenever we have a conflict, it might not be feasible or it might not be the optimal conflict resolution method to adopt litigation. Litigation can be a very cumbersome, time-consuming, complicated process with a lot of costs involved in it. And it is not the most optimal way to repair broken down relationships either. Now, because of this, there are other alternative mechanisms that we can use to resolve a dispute, such as alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. Now, these alternative mechanisms are used to resolve a conflict at a much faster pace, and most importantly, outside of the courtroom. And these are alternatives to litigation, and that is why we call these ADR mechanisms, Alternative Dispute Resolution Mechanisms. Now, some of these mechanisms involve mediation, negotiation, arbitration, etc., etc. So now I'm going to briefly introduce what these different mechanisms are. Now, starting off with mediation. Mediation is an ADR process where you have a third-party neutral facilitator called the mediator who assists the parties to explore their interests, positions, and to come to a win-win solution. However, the mediator does not decide for the parties. The mediator only structures and facilitates a conversation between the two parties of the dispute. It is the parties who have the control over the outcomes of the mediation process. Now, moving on to arbitration, it is another ADR process where you have a third party called the arbitrator. However, unlike in mediation, the arbitrator has the power and capacity to decide for both the parties involved. Thirdly, you have negotiation. In negotiation, you do not have a third party, and it is a two or more parties involved in the dispute who come to the table, who come to the negotiation to converse their interests and positions, seeking for a mutually agreed solution. However, when we look at all these ADR mechanisms, what stands them out from litigation is their cost effectiveness and time efficiency, flexibility, confidentiality, privacy, and the neutrality of the process. And of course, compared to litigation, it is much more effective and it's much more convenient for the parties involved in the dispute. So that is it from me about conflict resolution and its different mechanisms. Hope you learned something out of the video, and thank you very much and wish you all the best.